All right, this is the chapter where the fun begins. We're going to be talking about drawing objects in this chapter. We'll start out in this lesson with some basic shapes, and we'll move on to more advanced shapes in the next lesson. We'll look at the perfect shapes collection, drawing lines and curves, and then manipulating, modifying any of those shapes, lines, and curves using some node editing techniques. But right now you can see I've closed everything up. We're ready to start drawing some basic shapes, so we need a brand new blank canvas, so to speak. So I'm going to go up here to my new button. Control N on your keyboard is the shortcut. Give it a click. There's my new blank page. The default settings, 8.5 by 11. It's portrait. I'm going to flip it on its side by going up to my property bar here and click landscape. And now I've got a nice drawing area. So let's experiment now with some basic shapes. We're going to come down to our toolbox here on the left and start with our basic rectangle tool. F6 on your keyboard is the shortcut to access this tool. One click activates it. Now when you move your mouse pointer onto the page, you can see it's changed from the pick tool to the rectangle tool. Also, take a look down at the very bottom on your status bar. There's some hints down there on how to use this. For example, double clicking on the rectangle tool creates what we call a page frame. I'll show you that in a moment. Control, while dragging to draw a rectangle, constrains it so you always end up with a perfect square. And if you hold down your Shift key and drag to draw a rectangle, it will be drawn from the center. And that's sometimes helpful if you've got multiple objects, one on top of the other, and you want them perfectly aligned. So let's experiment with these options. First of all, holding no keys down, let's just go up to the top left corner here. We'll click and drag across and down, and what we should get is your basic rectangle. So I'm going to go right to about the 4-inch mark on my ruler at the top and down to about the 6-inch mark. Those help me get the size I'm looking for, and when I release, I've got my brand new rectangle. Not much to that. If I want a perfect square, remember down at the bottom we have that hint. Hold down your Control key, click and drag across and down. Now you're getting a perfect square. It won't let you draw anything but a perfect square no matter where you move your mouse pointer. But as you click and drag out and down, once you've got the size you're looking for, let go of the mouse first and then your Control key and you'll have a perfect square. Very nice. Now, like I said before, if you wanted to fill the page in the background with a rectangle, just go over to the rectangle tool and give it a double click. Watch what happens. See the handles around the outside here. Now, if I wanted to really show you what's happened here, I would go over to my color palette and choose a color. I'm going to click on this bright red here. And you can see I can still see my other rectangles even though I drew them first. The big rectangle is in the background. It's on my page filling the entire page, and it's a great way to add a background to any of your work. I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard because it's still selected. I can tell by the little handles around the outside. Hitting my delete key on the keyboard removes that background. There we go. So I'm still using the rectangle tool. Now what if I wanted to draw a rectangle but on an angle? Now you can draw a rectangle and rotate it after the fact. I'm going to go up to my pick tool here and I'm going to click on this bottom square down here and I'm going to rotate it by clicking again in the center. Now my handles have changed to rotation handles and skew handles. I'm going to rotate it just to about 45 degrees. Now you'll be able to see the actual degrees up on your property bar as you're rotating. So I'm going to go try to get as close to 45. That's 45 right there. I see 45 degrees up here. Of course, I could have typed that in as well. I'm going to click again on the rectangle, which is a square, and just move it over here a little bit down and towards the center. Now, I could have just drawn that right from the beginning by using a different tool. Notice that the rectangle tool is what we call a flyout. There's that little black triangle in the bottom right corner indicating there are some tools hiding behind this rectangle tool, and if I hold my mouse button down there's something called the 3-point rectangle. So when I click on that, now all I have to do is click and drag on the angle I want, and then a third click at the end is going to complete my rectangle. So let's say I wanted it to go right along this angle here. When I see the node highlighted, I click and I'm dragging. Now you can see I can move my mouse around till I get the angle I'm looking for, but I want a perfect angle here, and actually I want the same width. So I let go, and now all I have to do, that was the second click, is just move to the location where I want to release this and create my new rectangle on the angle. So I'm going to go right about there and click. So it's perfectly on the 45 because I already had an object rotated to 45. I was able to add a rectangle Same width as my square on the same angle thanks to the 3-point rectangle tool. I'm going to go up to my pick tool now. I'm going to click on my page to deselect. So that is your rectangles and squares. How about ellipses? Now ellipses are really just ovals, and if you constrain them, they become perfect circles. So that's the next tool down here in our toolbox. I'm going to click on the ellipse tool. F7 is the keyboard shortcut. And if I come up here to the top right hand side of my screen, click and drag, you can see I'm drawing an ellipse. When I let go, it's drawn. Of course, I've got these handles, and we'll be talking about modifying the shape and the size and the location of your objects a little bit later on. Right now we're just drawing these basic shapes. If I want a perfect circle, hold down Control, click and drag, and you can see I've got that perfect circle. Now you can see I'm dragging across to the right and down to get my shape. I'm going to let go here, hit my delete key to remove that, and this time I'm going to go from the center. I'm going to hold down my shift key, and watch what happens now. I'm actually drawing from that starting point. That's my center. And if I hold down shift and control, I'm drawing from the center and getting a perfect circle. When I let go of my mouse button first and then the keys on the keyboard, I'm left with my perfect circle that was drawn from the center here. One of the neat things about draw is if I want to move this out of the way, I don't have to go up to my pick tool and switch over. Notice that when I move to the center here, my mouse pointer changes from the ellipse tool to that 4-sided arrow, which means I can just drag it here out of the way. I'm going to click right in the center of my ellipse. It becomes selected, and I can move it out of the way a little bit as well. Because I'm going to work down here now with another way that we can draw an ellipse. Yes, there is a flyout for the ellipse tool as well, so I'll click on the button, hold it down, and there's my 3-point ellipse tool. Works just like the 3-point rectangle tool. We'll give it a click. All we have to do now is choose our angle. So I'm going to click and drag just like I did for my square. I'm going to click and drag along this angle. And when I reach the other node, I'm going to let go. And now all I have to do is just click and drag. You can see what's happening here. It fits perfectly on that angle inside those other shapes. And when I click to let go, perfect. A nice looking ellipse drawn on the 45-degree angle. Just because I already had a shape on that angle, I was able to follow along. But of course, you don't have to follow along another shape. You can click, drag at any angle you want. Another drag and click to finish it off creates another ellipse on the angle. I'm going to hit my delete key to remove that one. So you can see what's happened over here. We're going to get into this later on when we start combining multiple objects to create one. So you can see I've almost got a bullet shape here, and if I wanted to, I could start coloring that and turn it into an actual bullet. So that's kind of neat how we can create shapes using multiple shapes. And thanks to these two basic tools, your rectangle and your ellipse tool, you've got a great head start. As we move on to the next lesson, we're going to explore some of the more advanced drawing tools, and we'll start with that polygon tool that appears in the toolbox here underneath our ellipse tool.